This is a review of the Zoom G1X. I don't normally do video reviews, but I'm doing this as a video because I have a special use for this, which is that I need to use it as a headphone practice amp. And I spent a lot of time looking online to trying to determine whether it would meet my requirements, and I was really extremely unsure about it. So I'm making this for people who might have my requirements or might want to use it as a headphone amp, so they can see that it probably will actually work out for you. These are the previous headphone amps that I was using. Here we have the Vox so-called Clean. And here we have the, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Rushhead Max from Valiton. This one has the word clean on it, and this one has a clean setting right here, CL. But despite that, neither of these is really capable of producing the kind of clean sound that I want. I want something that really lets you hear the sounds of the strings like an acoustic amp. Neither of these is designed to do that. They have a lot of kind of noise and grunge, and they're very obviously, despite the fact whether they have the word clean on them or not, they're designed to for people who are into metal or just want distortion all the time, and I'm not one of those people. The other thing about these two is that I couldn't get a decent reverb or delay out of them. Clearly these are made for guys who are more interested in amp modeling and just plain old distortion. The reverb and delay obviously weren't very high priorities. So here's what the Zoom comes with. Now, first of all, the Zoom is not even available. I was not able to find a single retailer that stocked the Zoom. So even if you bought it through a retailer, if I bought it, it was going to be, I'd have to order it. So there's no way for me to check it out prior to ordering it. So anyway, I just finally took a chance and just bought it and had it delivered to my house. It came in this box with nothing else but a bunch of papers, except that it comes with this handy little cloth bag that is really nice if you want to put it into some other container, especially with other stuff, and you want to be sure that it's not going to get scratched. All right, so back to the Zoom. This is the unit. I'm going to be a close up front look. Now here's my practice guitar. I said that my purpose was to use this for practice. This is a Traveler Escape, the original Traveler Escape guitar. It has a jack right here, and it's actually a gorgeous guitar. Despite being just sort of a 4-pound block of wood, it sounds like an electrified acoustic instrument, and in fact I use it in performance. But mainly I use it for practice. And here is the case of the Traveler Escape. So my first requirement of the Zoom was that it was going to be able to fit in my case. I measured it, but you're never sure until you actually do these things. And in fact, it does fit in the case very nicely. And this cloth bag that it comes with, it comes in very handy because I'm going to be putting other things in there with it. For example, my headphones and a guitar cable, which I now need because this isn't a true practice amp and it doesn't plug right into the guitar. So that worked out very conveniently. Everything does fit, and so it met my first requirement. My second requirement was that it run on rechargeable batteries. So here is the back of the case. I'm not going to open it up, but it's got 2 tabs here. You push on these tabs and this door opens, and there are 4 AA batteries that go in there. If you're going to use rechargeables, I recommend strongly that you go with the Lada 2450s. These are from IKEA, and they seem to be, according to many people online and according to my own experience, they seem to be like OEM versions of the very expensive Panasonic Eneloop. The Eneloops are the premium top end of NIMH batteries. They cost 3 times as much as the Lada, These seem to be made in the same factory, and be sure when you get them from IKEA that you get the 2450s. The advantage of these batteries is that they last a very long time, 2 or 3 times longer than normal NIMH batteries. And then the other thing about them is that they have very low internal leakage. So the problem that people have with equipment sometimes, especially cameras, is that it might sit for a while. When you're not using it, it leaks internally and the batteries run down, and then when you actually need to use the thing, the batteries are dead. You generally will have much less of a problem with that with the Ladas. They seem to just hold their charge forever. So that is the second requirement. Oh, I thought I'd show you that, in fact, not only does this run on rechargeable batteries, but it actually has a setting. So you plug it, you turn this thing on by plugging it in, and it actually has a setting which allows you to select the type of power option, and here you see you have the option of selecting NIMH versus alkaline. So these little knobs are your selectors. So it is very well set up for running on NIMH batteries. My third requirement was that it have a headphone jack, and that was the diciest of all the possibilities here. So as you can see, this unit has no dedicated headphone jack. It only has what appears to be a line out. What I've done here is I've plugged a 3.5 millimeter adapter into it to use my small headphones. The problem with this is, in most effects, is that the line out is actually a true line out, and it's a high impedance, capable of driving only high impedance inputs, like the ones on guitar amps and other effect inputs. If you try to connect a low impedance headphone or other low impedance device to the output, what you get is extremely low volume and a totally flat tone that you cannot fix no matter what you do with it. So this unit actually, rather than doing a line out, actually has a headphone out as its main output, and because of that it's capable of driving both headphones, and also it's capable of driving your normal inputs like a guitar amp. All right, let me turn it back on again. My final requirements were that it have a decent, clean sound. So when you get the Zoom, it comes with a whole bunch of effects that are mostly a bunch of distortion stuff in which I have no interest whatsoever. And then when you go to the top end, when you flip around on the top, you end up with a bunch of patches that are empty. And in these empty patches, you can hear the clean through sound of the Zoom with no effects applied. And the sound is really nice, and it is a decent level in the headphones. And in fact, there's a volume knob here which allows you to select the volume that you're going to hear in the headphones. Works very well. So there are these empties. Then the next question is, could it produce a decent reverb and a decent delay? And what I did was I programmed it. It comes with a quick start guide. Only took me a few minutes to program one effect channel with a Hall reverb, which is my favorite, and here are the options. So it lets you check the standard kind of reverb things. Note that this fourth one here is a tail. I'll discuss that in just a moment. And then I also wanted to add a delay, and the delay has two things in the chain, a reverb plus delay. I have a Hall in the first one, and then the second one is this delay. And in here you also have these abilities to select these things that are typical of a delay, and then it also has a tail. So both of these sounds are really very good. They're not studio rack quality, but they are really quite acceptable, and there's no problem using them for practice. So the tail option on these kind of excited me, because in performance I use tail all the time because I switch back and forth between effects. So if I'm running my reverb, I want to switch to my reverb and delay, and I want my previous reverb to keep running. Well, that's not what the tail does on the zoom here. The tail only works if you're going to turn off the effect while you're playing. And if you turn off the effect, then it will decay after you have basically bypassed the effects. So that's the only thing that the tail does. It does not do a tail when you switch back and forth between patches. In order to do a tail that way, you'd have to have two completely separate parallel effects change in the unit, and that would make it much more expensive. So don't get too excited about the tail. It's not a tail that will survive when you're switching patches, but it will survive when you're simply turning the effect off. In any event, if you're using it as a practice headphone amp like I am, the question of whether it has a tail or not is probably not that relevant, because you're not going to be switching effects dynamically like you do in a real performance, probably. Anyway, this thing met all of my requirements. It has a gorgeous, clean sound. It fits in my case, and it runs on rechargeable batteries. And most importantly, it has a true headphone out that drives the headphones at a very reasonable volume for practice. If you're wanting to use this for a headphone amp like I do, you're going to have a great time. Enjoy.
The sudden death of actress Anne Heche is highlighting the importance of having a will. An attorney explains the relatively easy process, plus what should be included in the document. That's next.
Things are brewing and Wendy serves it up hot.
Hate and unforgiveness causes wrinkles.
Adding a spoonful of gossip and a pinch of style.
And I got it.
Then keep the party going with a real.
Even if you really don't like the heifers, laugh anyway.
Hold on to your teacups, cause these ladies are stirring things up.
He was dating when we were married, so I'm sure he's dating now.
Afternoon tea time begins at high noon on My 20 Vision. They're bold and full of...